Greetings. So in today's non-duality topic video, I'd like to talk about what it means to essentially be spiritual. What does it mean to be spiritual? It's not an identity, but I'm going to take you, I think, a lot deeper. I think you guys are ready for this. I'm going to take you somewhere today that you might not be expecting. So when we look at people online discussing spiritualism and what to do and how to be spiritual, how to align with my soul, how do I do as the soul does? You'll often hear people say things like, I got to focus on myself, right? So like with my coaching students, they're trying to take their focus off the external and instead I got to focus on myself. But that's not really what these teachings are. This teaching of genuine spiritualism, right? Traditional Zen spiritualism, non-duality teachings, right? Genuine spiritualism, non-duality, genuine spiritualism is the teaching that you are consciousness. And so it's not that I need to focus on myself. Watch what I'm doing with my hand even. It's not I need to focus on me, it's I am the very focus. So, you're not working on yourself. You're not focusing on yourself. When you say, I focus on myself, that sentence has a subject-object relationship. And it's not just a game of semantics either. This is actually really key. You can tell a lot about how a person is going about their spiritual journey, if you will, by the things that they say. So for example, they're going to say, I'm working on myself, or I got to focus on myself. That's not it. You are the self. If I say I focus on myself, that's a subject-object relationship. And it's a perception, and perception is everything. Remember, spiritualism is consciousness. Consciousness is non-duality. The mind is duality. So the mind, the ego, it's always going to compartmentalize and play itself off against itself to trick you. And the trick is that one side of that conversation you identify with. So everybody watching by now, you should understand the basic tenet of this, which is that you are not your mind, right? That's the name of the first chapter of Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, right? The first chapter is called You Are Not Your Mind. This teaching of what spiritualism really is and who the self really is, right? So who am I beyond the body and the mind? Well, I'm a soul, right? But what is that, right? This teaching that you are not the mind, but rather the mind is the object of the consciousness that you are. It's so well known that it's on a freaking bumper sticker, dude. Right? Look at this. That's how well known this is. So the mind is just playing itself off against itself. I got to focus on me. Well, one of those two, in that subject-object relationship, one of those two, you are believing that you are. You believe that you either are the I or the myself. I got to focus on myself. One of them, you think you are. That's how the mind continues to trick you and control you into thinking that you are the mind, believing that you are the mind. You think you got to figure out spiritualism, but it's actually not you who's thinking that. You just believe you are the mind, again. And so you believe that it is you who is trying to understand spiritual. But you can't understand spiritual, and you don't need to. So there's no subject-object relationship with consciousness, which again is non-duality. So it's not I gotta focus on myself, it's I am. You are the very focus. I got to focus on me. No, I am the focus. You become aware that you are awareness. Can a thought listen to this conversation? Can a thought experience anything? Can a thought experience pain? Can a thought, again, listen to this conversation? Can a thought be aware of this conversation? No. Thought is merely the object of consciousness, which is what you really are. That's who you are beyond the body and the mind. It's so simple. It's so much simpler. No thinking required. No thinking required. I could just put a big stamp right here. No thinking required. Right. The self is the spaciousness within, the awareness of the machinations of the mind, the rattling on conversation, the emotional dialogue too. There's an emotional dialogue that we experience. The mind is doing all these things, but the self is just being, just existing. And that's a pretty fundamental teaching. The difference between being and doing. Doing is duality. I can do or not do something. I can start or I can stop. I can think or not think. The mind is going to say the object of spiritualism is to stop thinking. Not at all, because that's duality. Stop has an opposite. Start. So that can't be it. Now, being has no opposite. Even after you do the thing that we call die, what happens? Well, what happens is you don't die, the real you. What happens is the body goes away, the mind goes away. What's left? You. The real, actual you, consciousness. You are there existing. You are the exister. You are being, existing. And because that never ends, you can't not be, you can't not exist, right? So being is not duality. Consciousness is not duality. So you're experiencing thinking. The you, the real you, is experiencing thinking. Thinking is the object of consciousness, not the other way around. And the mind is going to try to tell you that spiritualism is where I do something about spiritualism, right? So the mind becomes an object unto itself. There's a subject and an object. There's a relationship. There's two things, duality. There's a this and there's a that. I got to focus on me. Or here's something else I've seen somebody talking about. One time I saw somebody say, yes, everybody knows that the soul brings you experiences so that you can learn lessons and grow. Okay, well, that's another subject-object relationship, right? So the soul is over there bringing me experiences. Well, if I'm the soul, then what does that make me in this situation? You guessed it, the mind. So the mind even tries to externalize the soul. The soul is out there. And I've even had like students of mine at the beginning when they're getting frustrated and they're trying to figure this out, right? And eventually they get through it with my help. But I've seen them occasionally say things like imagining that they're being victimized by their higher self. Like, why would my soul do this to me? And that's when I have this dialogue with them and they go, oh, okay, I get it, right? So what was happening is they believed they were the mind, again, temporarily. They forgot who they were. And so the mind is what thinks it's being victimized by the soul. Right. It's crazy town. It's crazy town. So this concept, so it's thought, it's concept, it's the mind, concept of externalization. That's how you always can tell it's the mind that is in operation when there's this subject-object relationship or there's an externalization. The true self is just I am. You are aware that you are the very awareness itself. That's the essence of spiritualism, these non-duality teachings. There's no externalization. It's always just within. And it's not I'm going within. It's just within. It's just I am. It's just I exist. And that's all. Nothing else. I hope that makes sense to you. I hope you found this video valuable. I hope I've brought you something useful today. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back next week for another video. See you next time.